Okay, let's go through some mathematical operators in Java, right? Let's say I'm working with numbers and I want to add or subtract or multiply or divide. Now notice I'm still using my Hello World program. Probably not the best thing to do, but I'm just using it as a shell because I need main and I'm just modifying this one program all the time. So let's say we declared a variable of type length, right? And it's an integer. And let's say I have another one called width, right? Length and width. Now, one thing we've never done before, if you have variables of the same type, like length is of type in, width is of type in, you can define those on the same line if you want. You don't need two lines for that. I could just come up here and put length, comma, width. And now I have two variables, length and width, both of type int, right? Okay, so let's say I assign length to be 10 and I assign width to be 5, right? And let's assume we're dealing with a rectangle and it has a length of 10 and a width of 5, and I wanted to find the area of that rectangle. Now, how do you find the area of a rectangle? You multiply the length times the width. So let's define another variable called area, right? And now in my program, I want to calculate the area of that rectangle. What I could do is I could say area equals length times width. Now the multiplication symbol is the asterisk, the star. It's not an X, right? The multiplication symbol in Java is the asterisk. So let's see what this did. This program defined all my variables. There's 3 integer variables. This first line took 10 and stored it into length. This line took a 5 and stored it into width. And this line here, line 14, right, took what was on the right-hand side and calculated that, and then put that into area. So what did it do? It took length, which was 10, and width, which was 5, multiplied the two together, got 50, and stored that 50 into area. Now I could print out area, right? Area, and the variable name, right? And we learned this in the last video. I concatenate this on, and I could run my program now, and it should print out the length times the width, which is 50, right? And I run my program, and sure enough, the area comes out as 50. Okay, let's get into a little bit more, a slightly more complicated print line. Let's say .out.println. Let's say I wanted to print a rectangle with width of, and I want to put the width there, width, right? So it's printing this string, and then it stops here, and then it concatenates the width of the value of the variable width, which is 5, right? But I want to keep going, right? And a length of, right? And now I want to put the variable length here, right? And I want to display it. So what would this line do? It would print this string, a rectangle with a width of, and then I put a space there, right? And then it'll concatenate the value of the variable width, right? And then it's going to concatenate a string, right? And notice I put a space here because I don't want and to be right up against that number, right? And a length of colon, and it ends the string, and then it adds, or it concatenates on the value of the variable length. So if I run this program now, I'll get 2 lines printed out, right? And the first one says a rectangle with width of 5 and a length of 10, area is 50, right? So maybe it would be nicer if I put, has an area of, right? And now it'll look more like an English sentence, right? A rectangle with width of 5 and a length of 10 has an area of 50. And that is how you use a little bit more complicated print lines to mix variables and strings together. But again, the main purpose of this video was to talk about mathematical operators. So we already addressed multiplication. Let's say we were going to calculate the perimeter, right? The perimeter. So how do you find the perimeter of a rectangle? You add the length plus the width plus the length plus the width, right? So we could write perimeter equals length plus length plus width plus width. That would be one way. And I could print that out. I could say, system.out.println and a perimeter of, and I'll concatenate perimeter to that, right? Okay. So this calculation is going to add length plus width and run it. So in this case, we should get 10, 15, 30. We should get 30 for the perimeter. And as we see, we do get perimeter as 30. Now, I could have multiplied length times 2 instead of adding length plus length. I could have said here, 2 times length plus 2 times width. It's another way of doing it, right? 2 times length plus 2 times width. And now if I run this, I still get perimeter of 30. So just different ways to do it. If you want to be sure that people understand order of operations, you could put parentheses around these, right? Most of the mathematical conventions that you're familiar with from algebra are going to work in statements in Java, right? So 2 times length, but 2 times width. But I don't need those parentheses because order of operations says do multiplication first, right? And then addition. But maybe to make it easier to read for the user, you might want to put those parentheses in there. Again, the other operators, so we have multiplication, we have addition, subtraction works the same way, right? If I wanted to subtract length minus width, right? I don't know what we would call that, integer difference. I could say difference equals, length minus, length minus width, right? And that would be the difference. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? If I wanted to divide, I would just put a division symbol there, right? Okay, and I'm going to talk about division in another video because it's very specific for division. So this is an overview of how mathematical operators work in the Java programming language.